Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Recruiters with No Limits. Always live and never scripted. I'm here with my sidekick and co-host, John Ruffini. What's up, Johnny?
How are you, Richard?
Good, buddy, good. And below us, we got the guru of recruitment marketing. I'm going to tell you straight up, David Stearns from Haley Marketing. What's up, Dave?
Hey, Richard. Hey, John. Thanks for having us as guests on the show.
Great to have you here.
You're quite welcome. And he's from sunny Florida right now, so look out.
No complaints there. Although it's not really the season when you're supposed to leave Buffalo to go to Florida. We're getting close.
I imagine it's still getting pretty chilly though. Fall comes early in Buffalo, right?
It does. Although we have this saying, I swear the seasons are changing because we didn't get summer until about July, so it's at least got to last somewhere into September for us. That's only fair.
And the only thing I'm going to say, I got to say this. Terrible towel hit Buffalo last week.
We're not even going
there. Bring it up. No. He had to.
We won't go there, but
I had to start with that. Okay, nice talking to you guys. Good show.
Well, let's just jump into our famous job report for August. I mean, I'm just going to pull this up here, and we can talk about it real quick here. It's been pretty disappointing. As much positivity as we have, 235,000 jobs, and I think we were expected to have almost 700,000. So. What do you guys think about that? What do you think, David?
So, obviously disappointing, but to me, I don't think that's surprising. I was sort of jumping up and down in my soapbox around March because we looked at the data, and literally March 11th, the stimulus package were announced. There was a nosedive in job applies. There was a 56% increase in cost per apply that started on March 11th. I mean, you could see announcement of stimulus, decrease in applications. So my assumption was, hey, as soon as stimulus ends, applies will go back. But then we saw states cutting the stimulus, and we usually would see a 2 to 3 week lag, and we'd see an increase in applications, but not nearly as big as we expected. So I started trying to research further, like what's going on, and common sense kicks in. Like it's not just about the money. It was about uncertainty. It's about, you said your stat showed it, only 11% increase from women. Who's the primary caregiver for children? Women. So we're going back to school. A lot of places went back to school in August. The rest are going back to school in September. What's going to happen? Sure, most schools are open right now. What if kids who are less than 12 can't be vaccinated? Somebody in the class gets COVID. You're quarantined now for 2 weeks with your family. What do I do about my job? So when I'm uncertain about something, it's easiest to avoid it. And so people can say, I'm not desperate for the money yet. So I don't know what's going to go on. I'm going to sit on the sidelines. And I think we're seeing some of that uncertainty. I also think August was the last bastion for everyone in the world taking a vacation. So those who could did. And I know we sent like an email out and we get the out of office replies. It was like 75%. Nope, sorry, gone. I'm visiting some son before school starts. So I think that was also a factor in August being a little slower.
Gotcha. Johnny, what's your intake on it,
man? It was interesting. We were talking a little bit before we went on the air, and the idea, that David brought up about, the folks who are home and had to stay home with kids last year to make sure they attended their lessons and in some case homeschool them. That's, that was one of those things that, okay, I'll admit, wasn't at the forefront of my mind. I'm thinking, all right, well, we're going back. Kids are going back to school. People will go back to work. But I agree with you. I think that's a big question mark in an area of uncertainty that people just don't know, because this virus has been so unpredictable and we don't know what's going to happen next. And also with that, I imagine that those that are in that situation, if they are not employed, they're potentially waiting for an opportunity that they could be employed from a work from home situation, so that if that happens, they're not put in the place to make a difficult decision of, do I work or do I care for my kid?
Yeah, John, I think, if you look at hospitality, a lot of people just said, I'm not going back to that. I don't have to. Like, the dealing with the public is not easy. So people are saying, well, I can make the equivalent pay going to do something else. Now, I'm surprised is, we haven't seen them all jump into light industrial jobs. We haven't seen them all jump into office jobs because everybody's short on talent. But I think a lot of people are saying, this is time to make a change. And you're exactly right. I think, looking for remote opportunities is something that a lot of people are striving to find.
Totally agree. And I think in the light industrial it's all about work-life balance. They want to work 40 hours and come home to their family. They don't want that overtime and stuff like that again. So, I mean, we're in changing time, guys. It's going to be exciting the next month, right?
Well, and yeah, absolutely. And the interesting that I always see is, okay, so unemployment continues to tick down, right? So we're at 5.2% now, but yet the number of open jobs continues to rise. So it's almost a paradox that we're living in where, okay, more people are going to work, or maybe just it's the reporting that's involved. I don't know. But those numbers go down, but yet there's more open jobs, and we're getting the jobs report. We're saying where not as many were employed as we expected. So there's a lot of data that is very volatile and fluid right now, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, labor force participation rate fell from, it used to be around 2001, 66% of eligible workers were working. At the pandemic low, it fell to 61%, and it's only risen back to 63. So we still have a lot of people eligible to work who, for whatever reason, are choosing to stay on the sidelines. I mean, a 3% of the entire workforce swing might close. I think there's a 2 million job gap right now between supposedly available talent and number of job openings.
Wow.
It's amazing. And people are being selective right now. I mean, at the end of the day, if anything hurt us in the pandemic for the staffing industry, people now are realizing, wow, I just don't have to jump on the first job. I can be selective and hold out for what I want.
Yeah, well, you guys both probably saw what Amazon just announced. We're going to hire 125,000 more people for the fall at a starting wage of $18 an hour. I mean, tell me that's not going to throw a monkey wrench into the whole light industrial world.
Yeah, it will.
Oh, big time.
Well, it's interesting when you look at how companies are changing. So the whole minimum wage argument, so minimum wage is rising and they have to be competitive. But what you're also seeing, unfortunately, as an effect of that are two things. One, consumer prices go up. And also the number of staff that these employers have runs the risk of becoming less because their payroll is now higher. I know back in my former town of Easton, Maryland, the Walmart there's no more checkers. It's 100% self-serve. So they've totally eliminated all those jobs for computers. And that's the downside of stuff like that I think people have to realize is, yet wages might go up, but those opportunities might be fewer and far between, depending on whether or not a company can actually afford to do it.
You're totally right. And even in the restaurant industry, I'm seeing like McDonald's now, when I help out, 20 hours is all you're getting. You're getting a bigger wage, but you're only getting 20 hours. They rather put more people there because some people might quit and call off. So it's a catch-22. We're going to just ride the wave. All right, now it's time for some positive stuff, right? So our guest today, 25 years. I just want to say happy birthday to Haley Marketing, my man.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah.
You don't look that old, Dave. Man, to be 25
I started when I was 12.
Probably did.
Well, I'm down here in Florida with my 26-year-old daughter who, for everyone asks the question, how is Haley Marketing's name? How'd you get it? Her name's Rebecca Haley. And so the backstory was my wife and I had a failed business. We started a software company because both of us had IT backgrounds when I got out of graduate school. It didn't go so well. My dad liked to remind me, that was your real MBA. And then we started the second company, and we said, we need a name that guarantees we will succeed. Both of us, my wife suggested Haley Marketing. I said, yep, never going to look my kid in the face and say, we named a company after you and it failed.
That's motivation.
Awesome.
Yep. A lot of long nights motivated by that.
Yeah, I bet. What have you seen, David? I know there's been a lot. So when you first started, and obviously, you are heavily connected with the staffing industry and recruitment marketing and candidate attraction and branding and things like that. what's been the biggest shift as far as how companies are engaging you as far as what they're doing from a marketing plan for recruitment marketing now versus, say, even as soon as 10 years ago?
So it's an evolution. If you look at, and what's driven the recruiting and the marketing change has really been the same things, changing staffing technology. So 10 years ago, social media from a B2B perspective was relatively new. The industry leaders were jumping in, figuring out how to use it as a tool to recruit. Today, it's mainstream. Everybody has some sort of social presence. So what's happening now? Well, companies are looking at, you guys probably saw the announcement, Aviante bought Workin. Okay, they're looking at how do I build an app so that I can really take my business and put it onto a smartphone.
Yes.
You're looking at automation. How can I take a recruiter and get rid of the C&D tasks that the recruiter needs to do to effectively communicate with clients and candidates, and through automation, provide a higher level of support, but turn the recruiter into a super recruiter. And so it's, our business, like the biggest areas have been driven by technology. And the last thing I'll say that's been a huge change for us is in the way job advertising is done. So, you go back a million years, Richard, I'm going to go back to the 1980s. So in my early days in my parents' staffing business, watching recruiters write ads that were by the column inch for the Sunday classified ads. Well, you can look back and think that's a million years ago, but those recruiters actually were really good at writing advertising. Then along came Monster and Career Builder and said, space is not a limitation. So we started posting job descriptions instead of job advertisements.
That's a really good point, David.
And we're coming full circle now that how do I make my ad stand out on Indeed? And how do I control the spend? So I'm going to sponsor these jobs. Well, job A is relatively easy to fill, had a higher pay rate, great company, great shift. Job B, kind of cruddy, but I really need more money behind job B. The advent of programmatic advertising that allows us to manage that in real time using software to manage roles. That's something that we've been doing for about 2 years. We actually had a client talk to us about a month ago saying, I feel like I'm really behind the industry. I just want to get started with programmatic. I'm like, right now, we're only at the early adopter phase of programmatic for the staffing industry. The ability to better manage that spend is an enormous opportunity to increase the return on what is probably the biggest, other than internal talent, the biggest cost for a staffing company, ad spend.
Wow. Good stuff.
That's interesting.
Except for yours, Richard, because you do so much grassroots stuff. So I have to sorry for interrupting, John, but Richard, okay. I always put your stuff up in the office saying, besides what we're doing with advertising and management, watch what Richard does, because the creative side, that hasn't changed. But what is happening, we had a guest on our podcast, and he said, we see every staffing company, they invested in social media, they're investing in automation, they're investing in apps, and we're taking all of our gross margin dollars and collectively shifting it to technology companies, but we're all doing the same thing. So we're just continuing to commoditize ourselves. You need that creativity as a portion of all the rest of it.
Exactly. So true. And then I want to just tie this in. What about the employer branding? I'm big on that, David. You're an expert at that too. I see now that a lot, and I'm trying to tell recruiters, you got to brand yourself too. What do you think on that?
Great two-part question, and I'm going to give you a strong yes to both. So the soapbox we're currently on is 100% employment branding, because a job today is a commodity. We literally had one of the guys on our team send a message out to other people on the team about, I think, 3 or 4 weeks ago, saying, no more now hiring imagery. Everyone's hiring. If you're not hiring, you look like you're just a failure. No more now hiring. But we don't have why hiring. And that why can go in two ways. An employment brand, can be about what makes your company great. So, or in the case of a staffing company, what makes your client great. Mm-hmm. We're seeing more co-branding and sharing employment brand where staffing companies are saying, look, Mr. Ms. Client, we have to partner with you and leverage your brand and our brand to reach the most people we can reach. And the days of we never say who our clients are, they need to be in the past. Because by working together, you can create a stronger message around individual jobs. That brand, what do you stand for? So what's your company's vision, values. How do you treat workers? How are you different than every other staffing company? I was chairman of the American Staffing Association Marketing Committee last year. And one of the things we were working on is the brand of staffing, because unfortunately, every staffing company is sort of painted with this brush saying you're a staffing company or you're an executive recruiter. So you're known by the people who created the bad messages. And it doesn't mean you can't break through that, but you're not starting from zero. It's sort of like if I said, yeah, the used car salesman is going to call you tonight selling insurance. How excited you're going to be to take that call? You're like, used car salesman selling insurance? No, thank you. Staffing, unfortunately, to a lot of people is sort of in that same bucket. We've got to create and define the brand. And I see most of the companies that we consult with, they've never written out what their brand stands for, what their values are to their candidates, what their delivery promise is. And then having processes in place. So it's not just words on a wall, but it's actually how they live it every day. And Richard, you are so dead on that employment brand is everything right now.
Man, I feel like I'm in church right now. You're just reading my my gospel, man. That is so true. And that now hiring, all my presentations, I say, get rid of that. Everybody does that. I got to ask you, David, real quick before Johnny jumps in here, is like, I'm so big on stories. We don't even have to talk about getting a job. Let's relate to the job seeker on like St. Patty's Day and different things. Relate to them. And don't be a salesperson.
I like that message a lot. I mean, one of the things that we preach internally is that we're in a business of providing marketing. So you might look at that and say, well, gee, that's not that fulfilling. We're creating websites and we're creating social media and we're optimizing websites with search engines and we're doing paid advertising. It's fun, but where's the mission? And then I'll tie it like, look what our clients do. They're putting people to work. Last year, we processed through our software, our career portal software, 3 million job applications.
Wow.
So how many people did our team play a small role in helping put to work? I said, that's what we're doing. And those people aren't just getting jobs. That's their paycheck this week. That's dinner being on the table, 3 meals a day. That's Christmas presents being purchased. I mean,
it's life-changing.
As an industry, we do so much. And sometimes I think we forget about it because there's so much pressure from the client and so much frustration from the candidate that we forget we're doing such amazing things for people. That, to your point, Richard, is the story that we don't often tell enough.
Totally true.
Couldn't agree more. And I like what you said, Richard, about telling the story, because as it's evolved, and yes, I do go back as far as all three of us go, is I used to write ads, and that's just what you did. But you're right, and it's interesting. You're bringing some things that should be obvious that aren't. When you was like, okay, the advent of the job boards, all of a sudden you weren't constricted by space. Never thought about that. So it's just like, the thing about, if I got a bigger house, I'm going to put more stuff in it because I can. Well, if I've got more space, then I'm going to fill it up because I can. And yeah, the job descriptions are stale. And I've always been, to your point, Richard, you got to sell the dream. Explain, why do you want to work there? Because the person who's going to apply to that job, okay, they probably have a baseline of skills and they know what they're walking into. So you don't have to tell me what's required, what's desired, et cetera. Tell me what I'm going to do, how I'm going to impact the world, what the company stands for, why I should come work at that company, and kind of sell the dream. And my follow-up question to that, David, is how much are you seeing video being integrated on advertising and recruitment marketing versus just static print or display ads?
John, the answer is not enough. So because of the perceived difficulty of creating video, because of the lack of in-house expertise, we're not seeing a lot of video, but video is the best way to convey that story. Whether it's through, look what we're doing right here. I mean, we're talking to one another over LinkedIn, using an app that allows us to record this. Everybody has access to a free Zoom account. You can do interviews and record it there. It's really easy to get video to help tell those stories. But think about who's the candidate that they thought they were unplaceable and you put them into a job, or the person who been out of work for a while and you got them back into the workforce. Or maybe we see a lot of times it's the mom who stayed home with the kid or stayed home to raise the kids, and now they're reentering the workforce, or somebody who just didn't believe in themselves. And the staffing company, as their partner, got them the next step in their career. Those are phenomenal stories. I also think, and this is probably harder to get, if I'm selling a job, Well, a job's an intangible. So if I tell you, John, hey, I've got a fantastic job with this great manufacturing company and it's in their warehouse, in your mind, whatever warehouse you worked in before is what comes to mind. You can't see what that warehouse looks like. You can't see what the equipment is that they provide. You can't see how they run things. Get the client's permission. We're all walking around with, these little devices, which are high definition recording cameras. We can absolutely create little videos to create a stronger brand around individual jobs just by partnering with our clients.
Richard is loving what you just said, because he always talks about, hey, have the virtual tour, and we have the capability to do it. Makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I would think that almost every job post should link to a related video, whether the video is employment brand for the staffing company. Here's what we stand for. Here's why you're going to love working for us. Or if you have it, here's the specifics of what this job is really going to be like, because most people are hunting for a job, scrolling through things on their phone. And they're going to the staffing website second. Mostly they're going to Indeed or ZipRecruiter first. So I need to have, even in that ad, something that's going to link out to give them more information.
Awesome.
And I think you hit it right on head. Believe. I tell them all the time, you got to believe in me and I'll believe in you. I mean, it's that Patriot way. Wink, wink. I'll just say New England Patriots, but it's like,
you're just going to kill me over the Steelers and the Patriots.
It's coming at you from all angles.
Oh man.
But no, it's so true, guys, that I just have to say, I don't interview people. It's a coffee chat, beer chat. I say that all the time, David. I want them to trust me right off the bat, and I think that's the biggest thing that we have to go over. We're not selling anything. We're job seekers ourselves, looking out, helping them.
Well, Richard, you said something earlier about recruiters having individual personal brands, and I couldn't believe in that more. I remember being at the healthcare forum a few years back, and I was at a roundtable it was about recruiting, and at the table were several people who worked for large MSPs. But two of the people at the table were travel nurses. And the question was, how do we recruit travel nurses? And the MSP people were all talking and talking and talking. And I guess I was a little rude, but I said, guys, time out. These two are travel nurses. Let's ask them what they think. And their response was, it's the trust I have in the recruiters I work with. Both of them said the same thing. It's like, I'm a little bit loyal to the staffing company that pays my paycheck. I'm a lot loyal to the recruiter that treats me well. And so recruiters that are hidden and invisible behind the scenes have no opportunity to help a staffing company's brand stand out. Recruiters who are visible. If I've got a company with 10 recruiters and there's 10 rock stars on LinkedIn, I just made my company so much stronger.
And I think the biggest thing is, guys, and you agree, let your staff and your employees you put to work, let them market for you. I mean, celebration, that, David. I tell everybody, that's free marketing for everybody. You see me, I post every day with somebody that I got a job with, and we're like having fun and laughing. That's a magnet. Yeah,
and you list another great one that I don't see anyone doing. Think about it. The average staffing company has 50, 100, 200, big company, 10,000 people they're putting to work week. How many people wouldn't want their own employees helping tell their brand story?
Yeah.
But we don't involve our associates or temporary workers in telling our story at all. And because we don't really treat them like part of the company. It's such an opportunity.
You must be picking my brain because I'm actually got a couple episodes coming out with that.
That's a great point, though, because your employees. And when we talk about employees, a staffing firm has to consider their employees, not just their infrastructure employees, but everybody you're putting to work every day, because they're on the payroll. They are part of your organization. They're an extension of you. Why not include them and have them tell their story? And again, it's a third party that has benefited from the relationship that they've built. That alone will help promote a brand and hopefully generate something, again, versus putting an ad out there saying, hey, this is what we're looking for right now. Drastically different and infinitely more effective, in my opinion.
Yeah. And John, just to build on that, if you think about like the average redeployment rate in the industry right now, which I think is something like 16%. So basically 5 out of every 6 people we pay to recruit, we screen, we place. 5 of every 6, their next job isn't with us.
Yep.
That's insane.
Frightening.
That's right.
But if we really treated those people like employees and said, hey, you may hear things on the job about assignment extensions that we're not going to hear. Let us know. You may hear about this assignment ending before we know about it. Let us know. We'll get you the next job. You may just say, hey, I don't love what I'm doing. Let us know how we can improve it for the next job. We need to have those kinds of open communications and relationships with our candidates, because if we could increase 16% to 32%, think of how much money we save on recruiting.
And some of that, to your point earlier, David, this is where some of the automation is starting to come in, where those repeated follow-up touches. Yes, I'm all for, you can't have a recruiter client relationship 100% electronic. You won't be able to build a relationship that way long term. So there is some either in-face, over Zoom or telephone conversations in there, obviously. But once you put them to work, you can let them know, hey, just so you know, we've got a bot that's going to check in with you. And if there's an issue, that bot is going to alert me and I'll be on the phone with you right away. But that allows them to keep that touch with them, find out, is it working out? Is it not working out? What's good? What's bad? Answer me this question. And the recruiter can continue to spend their time recruiting. Behind the scenes, that automation takes care of that. It's still keeping in touch with the person and alerting you to things that might get missed if you don't have that follow-up conversation.
So true.
I totally agree, John. And you made me think of a couple of things. I remember being at a executive forum a few years ago, and there were two people invited to speak. That one was a former temporary associate, and the other was a professor of a university somewhere in Florida. To say they hated the staffing industry was putting it mildly.
Ooh.
And they were got in front of a room of all staffing company executives to say everything they didn't like about the industry. But the aha for me is the guy who was a temp and didn't like the industry, his perception was, when something goes wrong, I have no recourse. Meaning he didn't know who we could call, what was okay to call. If he's asked to do something that he was not supposed to be doing, something that's physically dangerous, he didn't know how to be in control and who to talk to, because the lines of communication weren't there. And John, I totally agree with you. One, you should disclose that you have automation. We're using a bot. Why? Because our human beings can't call everybody as often as we want to stay in touch. So we're going to use electronic outreach, texting and email, just to make sure that's your hotline. We're going to reach out to you with our hotline bot, and you get back to us. And then if you're a live human being, we'll jump in and help you out. If you don't need anything, fine. Won't interrupt your day. The other thing I was thinking about is my brain just went off into a left field when I was thinking about the automation.
It's that Florida sun.
It is. No, it's creating the time leverage. Like, we have to help the recruiters, and in their mindset, they're sort of the coach, and the bot almost works for them. That's like your executive assistant. But to make sure the recruiters understand that the bot can't do everything. And we're sort of seeing some of that the other way, where people are expecting too much of the technology, that, oh, I'm going to eliminate all these recruiters. Well, that might not be a good idea if that reduces your level of customer service in the long term. So John, I think you nailed it, which is, it's the marriage of the humans and the technology to provide that better service experience, provide that hotline, without just looking at it as this is cost savings.
And you hit something very important, David, and that's disclosing that. I think a lot of times recruiters neglect to kind of discuss how they're going to work together with their candidates. And then all of a sudden they start communicating one way, but they didn't explain how or why they'd be communicating one way. So the perception might be, well, gee, you're not even picking, I never heard from my recruiter again. All I keep getting is these text messages. When if the recruiter had explained the why behind that, it wouldn't have been such a mystery. So I think that is a lot of times missing as well. And that's what gives candidates a bad impression of recruiters, because that's not covered a lot of times in the process.
Yeah, and you just reminded me what the second point was, where my brain went off in left field. It was a client recently in North Carolina that was looking at no call, no show, which is a huge problem for everybody right now. And one of the things they discovered is that when a temporary employee, and this company placed mostly light industrial staff. So when a temporary employee had something come up in their lives that was a problem, it could be COVID related, it could just be I just got up and I got a cold, or it could be I got a doctor's appointment today. The level of worker we're having here, they don't know how to deal with that situation. They didn't learn anywhere. They weren't taught how to work in a professional organization, how to deal with their manager appropriately. So when someone doesn't know how to deal with something and they feel a loss of control, it's fight or flight. And usually for people, it's going to be flight. They run away from the job, no call, no show, because they just don't know what to do. By using the technology and putting these people, say, this is to give you control. When you need to talk to us, this gives you control. When there's a problem, here's the button you push to reach us. Now, all of a sudden, they've got an easy way to talk to you, and they don't feel like there's no one willing to listen to them. They don't feel like there's nothing they can do. It's going to reduce the chance of that no call, no show. It's not going to eliminate it, but it's going to reduce the chance.
You hit it right on. I mean, that's the whole thing. I tell all my candidates, every week you check in with me and I check in with them. You know what I mean? And I represent you. And when I say that, for the 700 hours that you're working with me, I represent you. You talk to me. And they always say that. So, I mean, that's the missing link we're having here, guys, is that communication with the automation. I think sometimes automation, like you hit it, Dave, too many people rely on that and that's it. They hit a button and it's so easy. You don't have to pick up the phone.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other way is there's so many gaps in the process without the automation that a human can't keep up. I mean, I'll look at our own company. There's like we have people, we give away a lot of free content. So we have people who download all content all the time. And I'm sure they're shocked because no one ever calls. And thankfully, we've had 25 years of blessings that our sales team has never had to call somebody just because they downloaded an article from our website. They've had enough people asking them for help. But we also never had an automation to effectively follow up. I will say we're building those now. But there are places that automation makes a lot of sense when it supports gaps in your process that the humans can't get to. And there are places also when it takes away the wasted time. I know a lot of companies are looking at data hygiene, which is a huge one. How do I even figure out where the 100,000 people in my database, where are they now? That's where automation makes a ton of sense, because unless you're going to offshore it to live human beings, your recruiters can't do it.
And the simple volume that people are dealing with now, because of the way the job market is, yeah, it's impossible. They can't keep up with it in the way that they can if the number of people working is significantly less. I know at our firm, we've never had more people working on a week-to-week basis, and we've never had more open jobs to fill. So I get it when the recruiters, they're following up and they're staying afloat, but to do anything beyond that, it's a struggle because there's only so many hours in a day.
So I have a question for you guys. I mean, one of the other things I feel like is the Amazon effect. Like, okay, so we're all used to, I place an order and I get a package in 24 hours. Some cities I get it the same day. So I think that's impacting recruiting as well, that there's an expectation of instantaneous response or instant gratification. Do you guys see that in your businesses?
What are you seeing, Richard?
Okay, I'll start off. Yes, pretty much. I think it's everybody's on demand now. We're all ADHD, I want to say. So that's what I'm seeing now. If I don't respond back to somebody or something like that, or even they want responses now, ASAP. I'm sure John will elaborate about this, but that's what I see on my light industrial. They don't have time to wait. Johnny,
John, same for you.
Did he freeze up?
We lost John temporarily.
I think John looks like The Shining right now. Right? Come on, Jack.
I can't even defend himself, poor guy.
One thing I want to deep dive into, David, is the website integration.
Sure.
You guys are experts on the websites, and I want the audience out there to what do you see the change? I mean, the websites are just not like, click a button now. I mean, there's so much integration. What's going on your side now that you see?
So I'm going to give you two contrarian answers. One that I don't like at all, which is websites are becoming more and more of a commodity. So once upon a time, not that long ago, most staffing websites weren't that great. And now most are pretty good. And you can go build a good looking website really inexpensively. So on the one hand, the website is becoming a commodity and technology is making it more and more so. But the other hand is your website is really your digital branch office. And you have to start treating it like it's a branch office, that it's going to be about candidate intake. It's going to be about service experience delivery. It's going to be about client order taking. It's going to be about self-service. Now, that's no longer a commodity. That's those integration. Is it integrating with my ATS? Is it through jobs coming in? Is it integrating with the outside world to push those jobs out? Is it making it easy for people to apply? Is it allowing people to effectively interact with all of their data my company knows about them and all the questions they have from that website, from particularly the mobile version of that website? So I think as we look forward a few years and what we see coming in websites, the design and build of a website will become more and more of a commodity. The what it does to replicate the value of a branch office will become the differentiator from companies that invest to make that happen and companies that still treat it like a brochure.
Totally true. What do you think of like the Gen Z generation using websites besides the other stuff? I mean, do you think they're going to go to a website in the future, or do you think they're just going to jump on social media, TikTok or Twitter or something like
Well,
that?
I think they're absolutely jumping on social. Although if you asked my kids who are in that generation, they don't even like social, and the social platforms they like are not not the popular ones. So maybe my kids are a little weird, but
Facebook's for old people like us, right?
Facebook's for old people. They don't even like my kids don't even like TikTok, Snapchat. They're like, if I want to talk to friends, I go on Discord. I'm like, you go on what? And like, yeah, Discord. It's a program that we use like while we're gaming. We get on Discord to have conversations, and they're like, they just don't like all the noise of social media, and I don't know if this is universal, but there's more and more social consciousness in that generation, and there's so much political opinion. There's so much negativity on social media. They don't like that either. So do I think that's a risk to TikTok and Instagram? No. I think they'll continue to grow. But to your question about websites, I think a kid in the marketplace, showing my age there, who wants a job is going to go to their phone first, and they're going to go to their personal network. Who do you know? So am I getting referred in? Again, if all of your associates are part of your referral network, you're going to do better. Then they're going to search for things. So what are they searching for? We have to figure that out so that we can ensure that they're getting the right information about our companies.
Good stuff. So true. And I think, there's so much technology out there, David. Next year at this time, there'll be another social media app or something, so. Well, if you have a guest,
absolutely. Well, that's the one thing is the technology will keep changing it. What is it? Moore's Law was every 18 months, but I think when it comes to the social stuff, it's about every 3 months. You have to learn a whole new system.
Oh, and I feel like, and I think you agree on this because you're like the cutting edge, always thinking, like I always say. I mean, David, I got to tell you something now before John jumps back on if he does. His dial-up internet, I don't know. I think it went down. Somebody picked that. I can get it online now. He's not
still plugging the phone into the modem.
Oh, John. But what do you think's going to happen in the future? I mean, there's staffing firms. There's a lot not changing still. I mean, I see something on ASA that should they wear a shirt and tie to work anymore? I mean, it's like, I wear flip flops.
I was joking about that chat today over lunch.
I know.
If you look at our industry for parallels, look at real estate and look at travel agents. What happened? Both industries changed because of technology. Mm-hmm. Both industries had their commission structures challenged. The travel industry got decimated when airlines said we're not paying commissions, and most travel agents weren't really adding a lot of value at that time. They were just providing booking, which wasn't a high value interaction. The travel agents that are thriving today provide experiences. They curate experiences for their customers. Real estate went the other way, saying, hey, we're going to make technology core to what we do. It used to be that only your agent knew what listings were available. No, let's make the MLS available online. People can get any information they need, but let's augment that because it's overwhelming. Just like finding a job is overwhelming. It's one of the things people dread most in their lives is finding a job. So there's so much opportunity for the staffing industry to say, how can we better combine technology and our human reach to be more like the real estate agent and less like the travel agent? Or for those that are going to be like the travel agent, then what experience can I craft when it comes to either finding a job or going to the employer side? I think, Richard, that if you look a few years out, the way we employ people is going to change dramatically. So go back pre-pandemic. My employees came to my office from most companies. All right, pandemic hits. My employees are almost all remote unless I'm in essential business. Mm-hmm. Today, I've got to embrace some sort of hybrid. I don't know exactly how to do it, but I got to embrace some sort of hybrid. But we haven't even talked about, well, when should I use full-time employees versus contract or freelance workers? When should I use offshore resources? How do I build a global team to support what my business needs to do. And almost every employer could take advantage of some resources in their office, some resources remote, some resources just freelance project-based, and maybe some permanently offshore. And that's a very complex business model that's some staffing companies will really learn how to manage workforce solutions at that level. They'll have a huge advantage because they can provide a workforce management solution that gets well beyond labor to do a job, which for 20, 30 years has been getting more and more commoditized.
Totally true on that. One thing I got to throw out there, and you probably know my opinion on this, but I want to hear your take on it. The job boards, everybody complains they're not getting the traffic on Indeed. They're paying all this money. I mean, you're the expert in this, with the technology. What is going on with the job boards? Is it a thing of the past? I mean, did it hit its peak? I mean, what do we?
Oh, great question. I would say it's definitely not a thing of the past. I would say if you are a boutique agency, you probably can do your recruiting without the job boards, building networks, essentially the electronic version of your old little black book, and nurturing relationships with your own talent communities. That could be more than enough people to keep your job orders filled. You do some very clever things that I know, a lot of local grassroots activities that in underserved communities, we can be an employer of choice because there aren't that many options, and we can be a place anyone can come to get help. But the job boards themselves still bring the vast majority of candidates to staffing companies. And at least for the immediate future, that's not likely to change. The question is, they keep constantly dictating. We just saw ZipRecruiter's minimum bid on a click going up significantly. And we were given 2 weeks notice about the cost per click going up from, I think, 42 cents to 62 cents. That's almost 50% increase in the minimum cost per click. So now we have to get more sophisticated about how we manage that money. We talked about programmatic earlier. That's where some of that comes into play, about knowing which jobs really do we need to advertise to get people and which don't. And then what you talked about earlier, when do we kind of skip the job board altogether? Because building my social media presence, building my brand as an attractor, like I don't think Google ever runs an ad because everyone's like, oh, Google, I want to work for them. Sort of the opposite. Their job is to reject candidates. I met a guy who was a recruiter for Google. I said, what was the hardest part of your job? He said, turning down the number of amazingly qualified people I have to turn down. So for the average staffing company, job boards aren't going away in the short term, but our relationship with them is going to change, whether it's through programmatic, whether it's through building our own talent communities, whether it's through building a stronger employment brand.
So true. And look who's back. Here's Johnny.
Beauty of technology. And I'm even hardwired Ethernet, man. It wasn't like Wi-Fi. I lost everything. So thank God for my phone.
Exactly. Oh, man. So we're back. We're just chatting about some of the social media technology, John. So of job boards, you know that, right, buddy?
Absolutely. And it's interesting. Remember, you go back to when the first job board hit the scene, Monster, and everybody thought it'd be the end of the recruiter. Everybody was like, oh, the recruiters are going to be non-existent in, a year or two. Every job board that comes out, we're still here. So they're important and they drive a lot of traffic, and recruiters have to be smart about how they use them. They're not going anywhere. I mean, it's going to be a continual evolution.
Do you guys think there'll be other job boards? I mean, I've seen there's so many different job boards out there, besides the big ones. David, do you think it's going to keep growing and somebody's going to try to knock the big dogs off?
If there's an entrepreneur out there, there's going to be someone who tries to knock the big dogs off, because there'll be a new technology. If you look at new technologies that I think could change the job hunting game, how about AR and VR? So we talked about job hunting videos, but when is it going to become an immersive experience where my search is I can walk around the plant and see what I'm going to be doing? Oh, this is the job that's open. This is Jack's the supervisor. This is what you're doing. It sounds like science fiction, except if you know someone who owns an Oculus headset and you ever put it on, it's not fiction, it's today's reality, just no one's creating the content yet. So will someone use that to create a new version of a job board where I can search virtual jobs? Absolutely. That will come along. Will it replace an Indeed? No, most likely they'll just buy the company once the company starts to get successful. Will social media displace it? Facebook's making a big push into jobs. I'm really excited that we just got our Facebook jobs integration done with our career site, but they've made a much bigger push. Where are they going to take it? I don't know. but they're putting a lot of resources behind becoming more of a site for people to find employment. Then we all thought Google was going to change the game with Google for Jobs. And then they sunsetted their Google Hire product. And it's sort of just a giant mystery what Google for Jobs is going to, or Google's going to do next. So pardon for the long answer, but I think the job boards won't go away, but new technology will create opportunities for people to find new ways to find jobs. Look at Uber, and who thought of that as really like a job board? But that online platform, they hire an unbelievable number of people through their app every single month. And so they're not a job board, but if you would like, the SAA Gigi Summit was going on, they're the #1 player in that industry because of the volume of revenue, the volume of people they put to work. And 8-9 years ago, nobody ever even heard of them.
Yeah, it's those type of disruptors. And, Uber kind of set the stage for, now they're calling every app that comes into the temporary staffing workplaces, oh, it's Uber for staffing. Everybody can relate to that, but it's true. If you're not a company that has an online app to help manage and drive your temporary staffing and put more of the control in the candidate's hands once they're on board with your company to say, yes, I'll work that shift. No, I won't work that shift. Then you're falling pretty far behind the curve.
Yeah, John, it's particularly where you are in healthcare, it's become so critical, especially for those per diem nurses.
Yep.
That if I'm both a facility trying to get providers, if I can't put my job order out right away, I got the risk that I'm not going to get the shift staffed. And likewise for provider, I'm looking for some extra time this weekend. Who's hiring? That's the easiest way. You're eliminating friction, and anybody who can reduce the friction right now. Richard, to your point, if I go to a job board, it's not a low friction experience. Finding the right job by sifting through all that stuff in Indeed is not a low friction experience. Somebody besides just the online companies will find ways to reduce that friction.
Exactly. Or even I want to tie into this real quick, Dave, captions, like in content. What's your opinion about captions? I'm a big caption person. I think that if you have a video, people like to read. They don't read the job description below or anything. They read the captions in the video.
Couldn't agree more. Captions absolutely need to be there. Some people prefer it. Some people are in environments where they don't want their sound on. So I completely agree that videos need to have captioning so people can consume the content the way they want to consume it.
So Dave, what is going on with Haley Marketing? What's new? Give us some insight of something. If you can give us any little tips of what's coming up. Is there anything that you guys are rocking out? Because I know there's something coming up. I know there's something brewing.
No, the big it's not really going to be any surprises. So the big area for us is automation. I think Jeff Stotts, our new CMO. That's his area of expertise, and so he's really been leading the charge in providing automation services because we're seeing everybody has purchased Sense or Herefish. Or they may have a marketing automation platform like a HubSpot. The vast majority of the time, it's not optimized. And so getting more out of the software that you're paying a lot of money for every year, I think all staffing companies will be looking to, how do I first optimize what I have? And then how do I take it to the next level of creating differentiation? Automation is really a series of texts and emails that respond to certain triggers. So how do I either build more triggers in, or how do I refresh the automation so that my company doesn't look like companies ABC and XYZ down the street, but I have a really unique voice in what I'm doing through automation? So that's something we're working on right now. We're working on that next generation of staffing website. I can't lift the covers too much, but we're trying to work on how we will change the process. Because on the commodity end, it needs to be faster and cheaper. And on the high, this is your digital branch office, and it needs to do more. So we got to figure out how to do both those things.
Well, when you get more information, come back on our show.
Oh, absolutely.
First ones to report,
we will not be shy about it.
Me and Johnny got a little surprise for you here. We want to ask you about this. It's on social media all over the place right now. We got Staffing World in another week and a half. David, all I see right now is this. How can I win this? Come on, man. What's up with this? David, tell us the story behind this so everybody can stop by your booth this in 2 weeks.
All right, so I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. The Reader's Digest version is it's our 25th birthday, and we wanted to do something different, something big, something fun at the booth. So we said, what's the thing people have been clamoring for most? And the answer is travel. I want to get away. So, like, well, how can we make this? So we said, okay, we'll have some fun. And this was inspired by another vendor several years ago who was at ASA, and their booth didn't show up. So they were left, they spent all that money for booth space and nothing but 3 guys who were there with 20 feet of empty carpet. And so they were very clever, and they had a contest that they came up with on the fly to win a Harley Davidson if you could crack the code on the safe they had in their booth. And it worked really well for them. It was a great attention grabber. So we said, we're going to try to bring this to 2021. If you can crack the code, there actually can be 2 winners of $25,000 each in travel. And everybody at Staffing World can come give it a try, put the numbers in, and hopefully we will have not 1, but 2 people walk away with some serious cash for travel in 2021 and beyond.
That's
Did
awesome.
you say the Staffing Sharks already won? Thanks a lot, Dave.
We do have to document the number you're putting in.
Wow.
Richard, you won an all-expense paid trip to Pittsburgh.
Oh, no way.
Buffalo in January.
Hey, I'm going to be sitting on the beach recruiting like I always do, right? But tell you what, David, Johnny, let's wrap it up, man. I mean, I tell you what, wow, a lot of technology. David's got so much cutting edge.
Before we wrap, I have to ask him one more thing.
Go for it.
Because there's something on your LinkedIn profile that catches the eye, and I need to know what it means. He knows where I'm going.
I do.
David is a beer league hockey enthusiast. So what does that mean?
That is right. That means that I was foolish enough at age 43 to take up the game of ice hockey because my daughter was playing and it looked like so much fun. And I am now celebrating my 12th season of being a lousy hockey player. So I've joined a beer league team 12 years ago. We have a great time. We're terrible. But as long as I can keep lacing up the skates, I'll keep getting on the ice, and at least I can still be the sort of fast old guy on my team.
That's awesome.
I love it.
But I can only go in one direction. All the other guys can skate side to side.
Hey, that's God. One more direction than I can go in. I'm not a big presence on any type of skating surface, right? Whether it be ice or roller. Not really my strong point. So good for you.
It's just being inspired by your kids.
Very cool.
Or peer pressure, right? That's all it is. Johnny, any final thoughts, man, on our guru right here, David?
Can't thank you enough, David, for taking time out to share some knowledge with us. And some of the things I'm always taking down notes when our guests are talking. And you mentioned things like programmatic advertising. You mentioned that every job post should be linked to a video. I think the message you're sending is, from what I'm gathering, is recruiting firms or firms in general, they can't be static. You've got to keep evolving and being on the edge of what's the next best thing that's going to attract candidates, because the world and the industry is moving so fast that you've got to have a partner like a Haley to kind of guide you in that journey of, all right, hey, here's what we're doing now. How could we be doing it differently or better or more advantageous to drive those candidates, to our firm and to improve our brand image? So I think it's all about, staying on the leading edge and, never stopping that journey.
Well said.
So true. So true. I got to just say, hey, David, thanks for coming on, man, taking some time from being in beautiful, sunny Florida. But all I can sum this up is cutting edge technology and marketing. There's nobody in the industry that does what David and his team does. I swear to God on that. And true to heart, man, I tell you what, I study all his stuff. He has free stuff out there. If you guys, I'm going to endorse you right now. He's got the lunch one, Haley at lunch. I mean, he's got so much free stuff. Get on their site, grab the free stuff, and call them. I mean, telling you what, they'll be your best friend. Guarantee it. Right, David?
Well, our one claim to fame is 25 years of doing this. we've never made an outbound cold call. And the simple reason is,
Wow.
like you guys, we just believe in sharing ideas. So you're right. If you go to the resources section of our website, you'll find 2,000 blog posts. You'll find 10 ebooks. You'll find 10 years of recorded webinars and access to all of our podcasts. And that's all we're trying to do. Is our goal has always been to help make it easier and more affordable for staffing companies to market. And part of that is giving away ideas and being on our soapbox to show people how to do things as best they can.
Man, good stuff. All right.
And
All right,
a
Johnny,
staff
all three,
filled with
ready?
great people too. So kudos to you guys.
Johnny, you ready
Thanks,
to sing
John.
all
Yeah.
three? Let's do it. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday
Happy
to Haley
birthday
Marketing.
to you.
Happy birthday to Haley
Happy
Marketing.
birthday to you.
25 more years, man. You guys will do it.
I'm going to join your choir. That is the best singing I've ever heard.
I wouldn't go that
I
far,
can
but
dance,
thank you.
but I can't sing. Or I wouldn't be sitting here now. I'd be a country star. But hey, David, once again, thank you so much for coming on. Can't wait to see you in a week and a half at Staffing World. We're going to have some fun. There goes the ghost
Awesome.
again.
Looking forward
He
to
must be ghosting us. You know that.
Yeah. Now his phone ran out of battery.
There you go.
All right, Richard. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to see you guys in Denver.
Sounds good. And everybody, hey, we'll see you next week on another great episode. Take care.